Okay, so let's jump right in. We all talk about getting carbon out of the atmosphere, right? But how do we actually do it? And maybe even more importantly, how can we be absolutely sure that when a ton of CO2 is removed, it's gone for good? You know, this might just be the single most important question in the entire world of climate action. And the answer is all about something called a carbon credit. I mean, that's the currency we use here. But its value? It all hangs on whether we can answer that one question with total confidence. So here's what we're going to cover. First, what is a carbon credit anyway? Then we'll look at the two big approaches for making one, working with nature and using some serious engineering. We'll dig into the massive challenge they both share, this permanence problem, and then uncover a really surprising solution that they have in common. I think it might just change how you see this whole debate. All right, first things first. Let's get on the same page and define the basic building block of this whole conversation. Okay, so a carbon credit, the easiest way to think about it is like a certificate. It's this official verified proof that 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide has either been pulled out of the air or stopped from getting there in the first place. Simple as that. That's the unit we're dealing with. So you want to generate one of these credits. How do you do it? Well, let's start with path number 1. And it involves working with the biggest, baddest carbon capture machine on the entire planet, Mother Nature herself. This whole approach is called nature-based solutions, or NBS for short. And really, it's just a broad term for any action that uses the power of natural ecosystems to solve huge problems, like climate change. Now, one of the most powerful types of NBS are something called blue carbon projects, and these focus specifically on our amazing coastal ecosystems. And this is a perfect example of why they're so incredible. We're talking about ecosystems like these mangroves, but also seagrass meadows and tidal marshes. They are just absolute powerhouses when it comes to sucking up CO2 from the atmosphere and storing it away. And get this, the efficiency here is just mind-blowing. If you look at the same amount of land, these coastal blue carbon ecosystems can store anywhere from 2 to 5 times more carbon than the terrestrial forests we usually think about. They are just incredibly dense, super powerful carbon sinks. And what's cool is, they're not just tucked away in one little corner of the globe. No, these ecosystems line coastlines all over the world. That means we've got this massive, natural, already existing tool that we can use to fight climate change. Okay, so that's the nature path. Now, let's switch gears and look at path number 2, which builds a completely different kind of solution, the technological or the engineering approach. So instead of relying on biology, photosynthesis and plants and all that, geologic carbon storage, or GCS, is all about technology. What these projects do is they capture CO2, usually right from big industrial sources like a power plant or a cement factory. Then they take that captured CO2 and inject it deep, deep underground into stable rock formations, hopefully locking it away for a super long time. All right, so now we've got our two paths, right? Nature and technology. One uses biology, the other uses geology. But here's the twist. They both run smack into the exact same absolutely critical problem. Because no matter which path you go down, there's always a risk that the carbon you worked so hard to capture doesn't stay captured, that it somehow gets released back into the atmosphere, basically undoing everything you just did. And that brings us to the gold standard, the thing everyone is chasing, permanence. This is the key idea right here. It's all about making sure that when you remove a ton of CO2, it stays locked away for a really, really long time. The benchmark everyone throws around is usually at least 100 years. Now, the enemy of permanence is what the industry calls non-permanence risk. So what does that look like? Well, for a nature project, think of a wildfire tearing through a forest, or a disease that kills off a whole mangrove ecosystem. For a geologic project, it could be a slow leak from that underground storage site. The point is, the risk is very real for both approaches. So how in the world do you deal with this risk? Well, this is where it gets super interesting, because it turns out both paths, nature and tech, use a surprisingly similar strategy to back up their claims. To get our heads around this, let's take a peek at the rulebook from one of the biggest players in this space, the Verified Carbon Standard, or VCS. They're run by an organization called Verra, and they've come up with a really clever mechanism that basically works like an insurance policy for carbon. Okay, it's called a buffer pool, and it's basically a shared insurance fund. Here's how it works. First, every single project gets a risk score.
Then, based on how risky it is, it has to donate a certain percentage of its carbon credits into this shared pool. Now, here's the key part. If any of those projects fails, say a forest burns down or a well starts to leak, credits are taken out of that shared buffer pool and canceled to cover the loss. It's a way to make sure that for the system as a whole, the climate benefit is always protected.
And here it is, the big reveal. According to the official VCS rules, both of these project types, the nature-based ones, which they lump under a category called AFLU, and the geologic carbon storage projects, they both use this exact same buffer pool system to manage their risk of non-permanence. It's not one for nature and another for tech. It's one shared solution for a shared problem.
Okay, so what does all this mean? What's the big takeaway here? If both nature-based and tech projects have risks, and they both use a similar insurance plan, then what really matters?
Well, it tells us that this simple debate of nature versus technology might be kind of missing the point. It's not really about which category is automatically better. The reality is both have risks, and both have these sophisticated, well-thought-out ways to manage those risks. The real discussion we should be having is about the quality of each individual project. And this is what quality looks like. Is the project based on a tough, independent standard like VCS or ISO? Is the carbon accounting totally transparent and accurate? Have they really thought through all the risks and how to deal with them? And, super important, does it have safeguards for local communities and for nature? These are the things that actually matter, way more than just whether it's a tree or a well. You see how this totally shifts the conversation, right? It forces us to look deeper, to get past the easy labels of nature or tech, and really dig into the quality of the design, the management, and the verification. It moved us away from a simple choice between two things and leaves us with a much more powerful and, frankly, a much more important question. Not what kind of solution is it, but how well is it actually being done?